Welcome back, and thank you for tuning into Midnight Affairs Tales. We appreciate every single one of you. We'd love to know what part of the world you are watching from right now. Let us know in the comments. Now let's dive into today's story, Chapter 1. The wrong voice on the baby monitor. The house was too quiet. Jack Morgan stepped through the front door, duffel bag slung over his shoulder, boots still crusted with the dirt of his final deployment. His navy cap tucked under one arm, he smiled as he looked around the living room. Same furniture, same scent of lavender from the plug-in diffuser. Home. He had not told Lindsay or the kids he was coming back early. It was supposed to be a surprise. A reunion. A moment they would never forget. He never imagined this. From the baby monitor resting on the kitchen counter, a man's voice came through. Deep. Casual. Laughing. Then Lindsay's voice. Soft. Familiar. Too familiar. Jack's stomach dropped. He stepped closer. The monitor crackled. It was their bedroom upstairs. The audio was not broken. He heard a bed creak. A gasp. Then silence, except for a single word from the man upstairs. God, you taste the same. Jack froze. He did not move. He did not speak. His grip tightened on the duffel strap until his knuckles went white. His heartbeat pounded in his ears like a war drum. But his face? Stone. Navy training took over. He reached out and turned the monitor volume down to 0. He could have gone upstairs. He could have dragged the man out by the throat. But instead, he slowly set the bag down, walked to the garage, and drove off without shutting the door behind him. Outside, it was still daylight. A breeze rustled the American flag hanging from the porch. He did not scream. He planned. And as he pulled around the corner, only one question filled the silence in his truck. How long had she been sleeping with another man in our bed while I was serving my country? Wait, if this story gave you chills or made you think twice about trust, don't just scroll away. Hit that like button to support the channel, and subscribe if you never want to miss another jaw-dropping tale. We drop new stories every week that'll leave you speechless. Join the family, because here, every story hits different. Now, let's dive back into the story. The next morning, Jack sat at the kitchen table with a mug of untouched coffee. Lindsay hummed to herself as she cooked eggs. Her robe was loosely tied, exposing a red mark on her collarbone. He noticed. She thought he did not. You slept okay last night? She asked, back still turned to him. Jack nodded. Yeah, got in late. Did not want to wake anyone. She turned, smiling. It's so good to have you back. He forced a smile. It's good to be back. She had no idea he knew. That he had heard every word. That her lover had called her by her nickname, the one only Jack used to say. That Jack had driven around all night with the image burned into his head. He had wanted to rage. To kick in the door. To scream at her until the walls shook. But rage was messy. Rage gave away power. Instead, he watched. He listened. She was careful, but not careful enough. Her phone buzzed while she poured juice. Brent's name flashed across the screen before she clicked it away. Jack took note. Everything would be documented. Every word. Every move. He texted one person, his son. Ethan, I need to talk. Today. Just us. Later that afternoon, Jack sat with Ethan in the backyard. The boy was sharp, top of his class, head full of questions. I know, Dad, Ethan said without looking at him. Jack blinked. Know what? Ethan's voice was low. That she's cheating. I heard them once. Thought maybe I was wrong. Jack exhaled. It was like getting stabbed with something you already knew was there. We do not blow this up, Jack said slowly. We watch. We record. Let them think we are clueless. Ethan nodded. How long do we stay quiet? He asked. Jack's eyes narrowed. Long enough to make them feel safe. That night, Jack watched Lindsay as if seeing her for the first time. She laughed over dinner, complimented Ethan's haircut, kissed their daughter goodnight, all while texting Brent under the table. He knew now. She had done this before. Carefully, quietly, but not anymore. Jack had installed screen mirroring software earlier that week. Every keystroke was his. She never saw him do it. Every photo, every message, every location ping, Jack captured it all. Silent warfare. She asked him to watch a movie. Jack agreed. They sat on the couch. She leaned her head against his shoulder. Jack did not move. He looked at the TV but did not see it. He was watching the enemy sleep. When she went to bed, Jack walked outside into the cool night. He stared at the stars. One of them blinked. A satellite. He wondered if it was watching someone too. He pulled out his phone and began organizing folders, phone logs, messages, a fair timeline. He would not just destroy her. He would dismantle her. Inside, he heard the faint sound of her laugh from upstairs. It echoed like a ghost in the house he once loved. He closed the file. He looked up one last time at the dark window of the bedroom they used to share. "You are going to regret thinking I would stay quiet," he whispered. And then he disappeared into the night, calm as steel. Jack stood in the garage that next morning, surrounded by tools, boxes of old deployment gear, and the metallic scent of gasoline. The light above buzzed faintly. He knelt beside an old military storage case and cracked it open. Inside were items most civilians would not even glance at twice. Old zip ties, encrypted drives, a GoPro, and a black notebook filled with shorthand code from overseas operations. He flipped to a clean page and wrote 3 words in careful print. Phase 1. Observation. Ethan joined him a moment later, closing the garage door behind him. "I cannot believe she acts like nothing happened," he said, his voice low, controlled. Jack nodded. "That is the power of believing she got away with it." He handed Ethan the GoPro. "We mount this in the living room. Wide angle." Ethan mounted the GoPro behind a plant shelf. Jack set up a mirrored router for capturing cloud data from Lindsay's devices. He was not looking for confrontation. He was building a case. When Lindsay came out later, she smiled at Jack in the driveway, then casually grabbed it, angled away from view, and smiled at whatever she read. Brent. Jack knew the number by now. The last 4 digits burned into his mind. "Anything interesting?" he asked. "Just work stuff. Budget revisions." He nodded and sipped. The coffee was good. Her lie was smoother. Ethan walked in, hair still wet from the shower. He kissed his mother's cheek and sat down beside Jack. They exchanged a quick glance. It said everything. Jack turned on the TV and switched to the morning news. A local segment came on about a charity event. Brent's face flashed on the screen. The news anchor praised his leadership and commitment to local veterans. Jack stared at the screen, deadpan. "Is that the guy who ran that foundation for Navy families?" he asked. Lindsay hesitated, then smiled thinly. "Yeah, Brent. We met at a fundraiser." Jack let that sink. "He seems polished." "He is," she said, pouring syrup over her pancakes. "Very driven." Ethan clenched his fork so hard it squeaked against the plate. "Careful, bud," Jack said calmly. Lindsay was too distracted with her own lie to notice the tension. Later, when she left to pick up groceries, Jack and Ethan watched the footage she triggered on the hallway cam. Brent walked in 5 minutes after she left. Jack hit pause, zoomed in. Brent smiled into the camera unknowingly. In plain sight, Jack whispered. Ethan looked at him. "You think they even care who gets hurt?" Jack stood, eyes still on the screen. "No," he said, "but they will." The next 2 weeks were a dance. Jack pretended to be the husband who missed his wife's smile. Lindsay played the part of the loyal partner adjusting to post-deployment life. Ethan kept a straight face at dinner. But under it all, the operation expanded. Jack installed a second camera, this one above the patio door, then one in the garage. He monitored cloud backups daily. Lindsay's phone linked to a folder Ethan named Mirror 1. Every photo, message, and voice memo dropped in real time. Brent sent audio messages often. The voice was casual, disgusting. "You wearing that blue shirt today, babe? The one I like." Jack listened to them all, then cataloged timestamps, GPS pings, and building entries. At night, while Lindsay scrolled Instagram in bed beside him, Jack organized files into labeled folders. "Are you working again?" she asked once, laughing. Jack glanced over. "Yeah, trying to figure out what I want to do next. Civilian life is quiet." She leaned over and kissed him. "You will figure it out." He smiled. She did not notice it did not reach his eyes. Meanwhile, Ethan had started editing. He worked in his room with headphones on, cross-cutting home footage with phone clips, security cam grabs, and a slow, building soundtrack. The story was becoming real. At school, Ethan kept quiet. But one day, he overheard Brent's name again, spoken by another student who claimed their father had invested in Brent's startup. Ethan came home and told Jack. Jack paused. If he is using veterans' money for personal gain, we get him for more than cheating. Jack nodded slowly. This is not just about revenge anymore, he said. This is going to be about exposure. Ethan pulled up the latest clip. Then let us make sure the whole world sees it. Jack's jaw set firm. And when they do, he said, there will be no walking this back. Ethan had always been sharp, but now he was turning cold, focused. Jack watched him over breakfast as he typed quietly on his laptop, eyes darting from screen to phone. His teenage energy had shifted. Gone was the boy who used to build Lego battleships. In his place was someone harder, sharper, turning their pain into purpose. Got something? Ethan said, finally breaking the silence. Jack looked up. She has a second phone. It is not on the plan. But I tracked a mirror file. It showed up through her Gmail. Burner number. Jack took the device and scanned the logs. There were messages from Brent, short ones. Safe. Last night was everything. Miss the way you breathe when you lie. Jack felt his jaw tighten. She thinks nobody sees her, Ethan added. She thinks she is smarter than us. Jack nodded slowly. She is confident. Too confident. That same day, Ethan left for school, but instead of heading to class, he rode his bike to the rear lot of Brent's firm. From behind a line of dumpsters, he aimed a camera at the rear door. He knew Brent's scheduled Tuesday meetings ran late. Lindsay had left 10 minutes earlier, supposedly to pick up groceries. But Ethan knew where she would be. At 3:47 p.m., she entered Brent's office. Ethan got the shot. Later that night, father and son watched the footage on the living room TV. No sound, just moving pictures. Got her, Ethan whispered. Jack turned to him. This is bigger than cheating now. We are not just documenting a lie. We are documenting character. Ethan leaned back, eyes narrowed. We are documenting evidence. Jack's voice was low, measured. And when we are done, we will not just break their story. We will erase it. That weekend, Lindsay suggested a family dinner at a local Italian place. Bright lights, fake candles, music playing low over the clatter of cutlery. Jack agreed with a smile. Ethan kept his face calm, but inside, he burned. They sat at a booth by the window. Lindsay ordered wine. The kids split a pizza. Jack watched the door. Brent walked in 20 minutes later, laughing with a small group of colleagues. Lindsay's posture shifted, just slightly. Ethan caught it. Jack reached under the table and clicked on the hidden lapel mic taped to his chest. Brent and his crew were seated 2 tables over. At one point, Lindsay excused herself to the restroom. Brent, coincidentally, did the same 2 minutes later. Ethan stood. Bathroom, he said casually and followed. He found them standing too close outside the hallway door. Brent whispered something that made Lindsay bite her lip. Ethan clicked the button on his watch. It snapped a photo, perfect framing. He walked away before they saw him. Back at the table, he sat beside Jack and showed him the screen. Jack took a long breath, then passed the device back. Good work. They ate. They smiled. They played the part. That night, Jack opened a new file on his desktop, Operation Eclipse. In it, he placed photos, text logs, timestamps, Brent's firm address, cross-referenced with Lindsay's locations, and 2 clips from earlier security cam feeds. Ethan entered the room. What are we calling it? He asked. Jack did not hesitate. War. They stared at the file for a moment, silent agreement. From that moment forward, everything was logged. They began building profiles, uploading pieces to encrypted drives, cloud backups hidden in plain sight. Jack set up automatic fail-safes. If anything happened to them, the footage would release. No threats, Jack said. Just truth. That is all we need. Ethan nodded. Let them hang themselves with their own lies. The next week, Lindsay invited Brent to dinner. It is casual, she said. He is thinking of helping sponsor Ethan's school project. You should meet him. Jack nearly laughed, but he nodded. Sure. That sounds great. The The night came like a storm cloud hidden behind sunshine. Jack grilled steaks. Lindsay made mashed potatoes. Ethan set the table. Every movement was rehearsed. Brent arrived at 6:32 p.m., wearing a tailored suit and crocodile grin. "Jack," he said, extending a hand. "I have heard a lot about you." Jack took it. Firm grip, no smile. "All good things, I hope." Brent chuckled. "Of course." They sat, ate, talked. Brent spoke about business ventures, charity programs, and international investors. Jack listened, nodding occasionally. Ethan quietly pressed record on his phone beneath the table. "So," Brent said, cutting into his steak, "you must be proud of Ethan. Sharp kid." Jack's eyes did not blink. "Yeah, he sees everything." Brent chuckled, unaware. Jack turned to Lindsay. "So how long have you two been working on that school project together?" Lindsay nearly dropped her wine glass. Brent paused mid-bite. "What?" she asked, her voice a pitch too high. Jack smiled. "The fundraiser. You said he was helping with that school project. I just thought I would ask." Brent cleared his throat. "Ah, yes, the Veterans Outreach Initiative." Jack nodded slowly. "Right." The rest of the dinner crawled. Awkward pauses. Lindsay trying to steer the conversation. Brent growing quieter. After dessert, Brent left with a handshake and fake smile. Jack watched through the window as he drove off. "He thinks I am stupid," he muttered. Ethan handed him the phone. "Got the whole thing." Jack stared out into the dark driveway. He will not see the next dinner coming. Jack stood alone in the attic, the late afternoon light slanting through the small window. Dust swirled in golden shafts as he flipped through a thick photo album, family trips, birthdays, Lindsay holding Ethan as a baby. Her smile looked different now. Every picture felt like a lie frozen in time. He stopped on a photo from 8 years ago. Lindsay at a Navy ball, wearing the same blue dress Brent had complimented in a message last week. Jack stared at it. That was the first time Brent had come into their lives, an old friend of a friend, invited as a guest to the same event. Back then, Jack had no reason to question a handshake or a smile. Now it all felt rehearsed. He set the photo aside and opened a separate folder tucked into a box. Deployment records, service logs, incident reports. One file caught his eye, a military supply discrepancy from a transport unit. Brent's name had been listed once, lightly penciled in a comment section. Not enough to raise flags, but enough for Jack to remember. "Ethan," he called downstairs. His son appeared moments later, holding a notepad. "You ever hear of Westbridge Logistics?" Ethan blinked. "That is the company on Brent's LinkedIn page." Jack handed him the file. "Find out where this connects. There is a timeline here. I want to see if his business deals started before the affair, or if this whole thing was premeditated from the beginning." Ethan flipped through the pages, eyes narrowing. What if it was not just cheating? Jack's expression darkened. "Then we are not fighting a liar," he said. "We are exposing a criminal." 3 days later, Lindsay came home with brochures, rental cabins, lakeside getaways. "We should get away," she said, setting the papers on the counter. "No phones. Just you and me." Jack smiled faintly. "Sounds peaceful." She leaned in, playful. "We need this." He nodded. Even though he knew this was not about reconnection, it was about guilt and maybe a way to sneak Brent in without the kids around. The perfect hideaway. "Book it," Jack said. "Let us go." What she did not know was that Jack had already seen the email she sent to Brent. Subject line: "The place I told you about." By the time they arrived at the secluded cabin in the woods, Jack had already installed hidden cams 2 days before. Motion sensors, audio, even a drone programmed for perimeter sweeps every night. Lindsay was all smiles. "You sure are relaxed," she said, pouring him a glass of wine. "Fresh air helps," Jack replied. She took a call outside later that night, whispering near the trees. Jack did not follow. He did not need to. The mic clipped to the cabin door picked up everything. "Tomorrow night. Same time," she said. "He is asleep by then." Jack sipped his wine and stared at the dark woods. He was not asleep. He was listening. And when she returned with her sweet little smile, Jack handed her a blanket and kissed her forehead. I am glad we are doing this, she said. Jack nodded. Me too. Lindsay spent the next morning sketching plans for a day hike. Jack played along, packing snacks, adjusting the GoPro mounted in his backpack. The footage would be edited to show a happy couple, useful for contrast later. That afternoon, while Lindsay went to the lake to take photos, Jack checked the surveillance. The feed showed Brent's car parked 2 miles down the service trail the night before. The back seat was used. The timestamp was exact. That night, Lindsay tried to pull Jack into the mood. He made an excuse about feeling tired. She played it off, but he saw the flicker in her eyes. She was nervous. She should have been. Back at home, Ethan synced the drone footage, phone call audio, and a second file of Brent leaving the cabin trail after midnight. His face was partially covered, but his walk was unmistakable. You are building a movie, Jack said, watching Ethan work. No, Ethan replied. I am building a verdict. Jack stared at the screen, footage of Lindsay smiling as she kissed Brent under the trees. How long before we launch? Ethan clicked open a blank timeline template labeled Day 0. As soon as we have enough to make them panic, he said. Jack looked out the window, where rain had started tapping against the glass. They have no idea what is coming, he whispered. And he meant every word. The next morning, Jack stood at the counter making coffee when Lindsay's phone buzzed twice on the table beside him. She was upstairs, probably getting dressed. The screen lit up with a name she had saved as Lauren S. But Jack had already decoded that contact. Lauren S. was Brent. He picked up the phone, casually, like he was just checking the time. 2 messages sat on the screen. Transfer confirmed. You are good for the weekend. Your cut will hit the private in 2 days. Same Cayman link. Jack's pulse stayed calm, but a storm moved under his skin. This was not just personal anymore. This was criminal. He opened his laptop and accessed the mirrored files from Lindsay's cloud. Digging through PDFs and screenshots, he found an offshore account registered under a fake consulting name. Her name was listed in encrypted code, alongside Brent's. Brent's firm was not just faking charity numbers, they were using veteran causes as a front for money laundering. Jack saved every document. That night, while Lindsay laughed over a phone call in the backyard, Jack sat in the den with Ethan, laying everything out. She is not just cheating with him, Jack said. She is helping him move illegal money. Ethan stared at the screen, stunned. They are using dead veterans' names on donation receipts, Jack added. Look at this. This one. This guy was from my unit. Killed in Kandahar. They used his name as a ghost donor. Ethan's voice came out tight. That is sick. Jack leaned back, eyes fixed on the screen. This is not about breaking hearts anymore, he said. We are going to bury them. That Sunday, Jack staged what looked like a peaceful family day. He suggested they take new family photos, something to remember this year by. Lindsay agreed immediately, probably thinking it helped her cover. She wore a sundress. Jack wore his navy blues. Ethan held the camera remote, face unreadable. They stood in front of the old oak tree in the yard, a spot they used every year. Click. Jack held Lindsay's hand. Smiled. Click. She leaned into his shoulder. Whispered something sweet. Click. Behind them, a digital camera caught more than just smiles. It caught betrayal hiding behind makeup and muscle memory. Jack would use those images in the final cut to show the world the face of a liar who looked happy in the frame. After the shoot, Ethan retreated to his room, dragging the SD card behind him like a loaded weapon. Jack stayed behind, watching Lindsay scroll on her phone, barely hiding a smirk. How long do you think we have been happy? He asked. She looked up, surprised. What do you mean? He smiled. Just curious. She leaned in. We are still happy, Jack. We are just finding our way again. Jack nodded, almost laughing. Right. She kissed his cheek. Thank you for today. He walked away without replying. Upstairs, Ethan had already uploaded the photos into the project timeline. He dragged them across the screen and dropped them between a clip of Lindsay's offshore transfer and a video of Brent exiting her car late at night. The contrast was brutal. Fake happiness. Real deception. He looked at the edit for a long moment, then hit Save As. Project name. The House of Smiles. By Monday morning, Jack had retained a new lawyer. a specialist in military divorce law, reputation clean, teeth sharp. Her name was Dana Royce. They met in her office, glass walls, clean desk, no patience. "Are you sure you want to go this way?" she asked, scanning the file Jack slid to her. Jack nodded once. "I do not want to fight. I want to finish it right." Dana's eyes flicked through the documents, texts, photos, money transfers, videos. "This is enough to bury her," she said flatly. "And him." "Good," Jack replied. "But I want custody. Full. I want the house. I want clean financial separation." Dana tapped a pen on her desk. "You are going to need to keep quiet. No sudden moves. Let her feel safe until we file. Then we serve her before she has a chance to cover anything." "I can do that," Jack said. "Already have." She paused. "You have done this kind of recon before?" Jack's eyes held hers, unmoving. "Not in court. But war is war." As he left her office, the sky outside had darkened. A storm was building. Wind tugged at his coat. Back home, Lindsay greeted him at the door like nothing was wrong. "You were home early," she said. Jack kissed her on the forehead. "Just wanted to be with family." Inside, he found Ethan on his laptop, editing in silence. "They're going to hate the silence when it breaks," Ethan said quietly. Jack pulled up a chair. "Good," he said. "Make it loud without raising our voice." They both stared at the screen. Day 0 was getting closer. Lindsay's birthday arrived with the kind of sunshine that almost made everything seem fine. Jack made breakfast. Waffles, fresh strawberries, orange juice in a wine glass. Ethan handed over a wrapped gift. Inside, a custom silver bracelet engraved with the initials of each family member. She gasped. "This is beautiful." Jack handed her his gift last. A velvet box. Inside was a necklace with a diamond heart, and tucked deep in the clasp, a recording device barely larger than a fingernail. Lindsay threw her arms around him. "You always do too much." Jack kissed her forehead. "You deserve it." The irony stung, but he held the smile. That night, she planned a small dinner with a few friends. Jack pretended to be surprised when Brent walked in. He wore a blue blazer and brought wine. Lindsay acted like she had not seen him in months. Jack played along, pouring drinks, cracking jokes. Brent laughed too hard. Lindsay touched his arm one too many times. Ethan watched everything. He adjusted a tiny dial on his watch, recording levels up. When Lindsay leaned close to Brent in the hallway, whispering under the noise of the living room, the necklace picked it up clearly. "Jack has no idea. Just keep acting normal." Brent chuckled. "He is soft now." War took the edge off him. Jack sat on the couch, staring at the fireplace, listening through a tiny earpiece. He sipped his drink. "You are both wrong," he whispered. The next morning, Ethan dumped the audio into the master file and labeled it, "Happy Birthday, Liar." Jack was not the only one being played. While digging into Brent's financials, Ethan stumbled across a property registered under a different name, Melissa Hart. The owner's ID, when cross-referenced through public databases, matched a woman listed as Brent's spouse in legal filings from 6 years ago. "You mean he is married?" Ethan asked. Jack leaned over his shoulder. "That is what it looks like." The address led to a quiet suburb 2 towns over. Jack drove there himself, parked 2 houses down, and watched. A woman answered the door to a UPS driver. Tall, brunette, early 40s, she matched the photo from the license. Jack waited until the truck pulled away, then walked up and knocked. She opened the door with a wary smile. "Yes. Melissa Hart?" She nodded. "My name is Jack Morgan. I think we need to talk about your husband." She stiffened. "Brent?" "Yeah." They sat on the porch. Jack explained everything. The affair, the fraud, the hidden transfers. He even showed her a few clips Lindsay and Brent at the cabin on the driveway. Melissa's hands shook as she watched. "He told me he was traveling for work," she whispered. "I have no idea how long." Jack placed a small flash drive on the table between them. "This is your truth. You deserve to see it." Melissa stared at him for a long moment. "Why are you giving this to me?" "Because they both need to fall," Jack said. "And I cannot do it alone." Her face hardened. "What do you need?" He smiled, but there was no joy behind it. Your silence. Until I say otherwise. Melissa looked down at the drive, then back up. Then let us destroy them together. Friday evening. Lindsay stood at the kitchen island, dressed sharp in a navy blouse and heels. She glanced at her watch, then kissed Jack's cheek. Running a little late. Big meeting tonight. Might be out past 10. Jack nodded. Want me to wait up? She laughed. No need. I will be dead tired. She left in a rush. Jack and Ethan already had the tracker on her car activated. Her meeting led straight to the downtown lounge where Brent waited outside, leaning against his car, grinning like a man who thought the world was still on his side. From across the street, Ethan zoomed in the lens. Click. Inside the lounge, they picked a booth in the back. Ethan got in through the security cam network. Jack tapped into the audio via Lindsay's necklace. I told you he is totally blind, Lindsay said. I could walk Brent through the front door and Jack would still be making me dinner. Brent leaned in. You really think he would never see it? I know he would not. Outside in the truck, Jack heard every word. Ethan whispered, How are you so calm right now? Jack watched the footage, his wife laughing with the man who used to shake his hand. Because this is their last free night, he said. Let them enjoy it. He paused the audio, took a long breath. Tomorrow we start letting them feel the fear. The next day, Jack met an old contact at a quiet bar off Route 6. His name was Grant Foley, retired Navy cyber tech, now freelancing in private cybersecurity. Built like a linebacker, but sharp as broken glass. You did not just call me to reminisce, Grant said, nursing a black coffee. Jack slid a file across the table. It was thick, labeled Operation Gray Fox. Grant opened it, scanned a few pages, whistled low. Damn, your wife is slick. This Brent guy's even dirtier. You want exposure? Jack shook his head. I want backup. Surveillance hard drives duplicated. Live mirrors in place. Automated uploads if any device goes offline. If anything happens to me or Ethan, the world needs to see everything. Grant nodded slowly. Insurance. Exactly. Grant looked up. You realize if I get involved, I do not back out. This becomes a full-scale op. Jack held his stare. I would not have called you if I wanted it clean. Grant leaned back, calculating. All right, I will handle the shadows. You stay in the light. As Jack drove home later that night, he saw Ethan waiting at the front step, laptop on his lap, headphones around his neck. All set? Ethan asked. Jack nodded. We are mirrored now. If they even think about erasing history, they will trigger their own downfall. Ethan cracked a smile. Gray Fox activated. Jack paused, then added, From here on out, we leave no trace of weakness. Ethan looked him dead in the eyes. We have not for a while now. 3 days later, a new name popped up in one of the bank statements Ethan decrypted, Founders Alliance Charity Group, a shell nonprofit tied to veteran causes. Jack recognized the name immediately. It had sponsored 3 military funerals last year. One of them had been his friend, Devontae, killed in Syria. He looked deeper. Founders Alliance had no actual office. Just a rented mailbox, some glossy marketing flyers, and a fat stack of deposits funneled through Brent's firm. Ethan printed out transaction records, amounts moved from public donations into consulting fees, and then reappearing in Lindsay's secondary account. One entry was only labeled compensation for discretion. Jack gripped the paper hard enough to crease it. They are profiting off dead soldiers, he muttered. This is not just personal anymore. Ethan handed him another document. In this, look, Brent filed for a tax exemption using your name as a service reference. He is laundering money through your record. Jack stared at the page for a long moment, then picked up his phone. He called Dana, his lawyer. I am adding fraud to the divorce filing, he said. Identity misuse, financial conspiracy, federal violations. We are blowing this wide open. Dana paused. That is going to pull in a lot of attention. Good, Jack said. Let the media come. I will give them a real story. That night, Jack and Ethan sat side by side at the dining room table, sorting receipts, coding evidence, labeling folders with precise tags. This is what they wanted hidden, Ethan said. Jack's voice was even. Then we will drag it into the light. It happened faster than anyone expected. Ethan had been compiling a private reel, meant only for their master archive. A short montage that included Brent entering Lindsay's car, the cabin footage, a voice clip from her necklace. It was edited raw. No music. No fancy cuts. Just facts. And by accident, one wrong click, it uploaded to his cloud-linked school drive. The next morning, the audio played during a student assembly. Ethan was in the back of the gym when it happened. The speakers suddenly shifted mid-presentation. Brent's voice came through, distorted but clear. No one suspects a thing. She thinks he is too soft to fight back. Then Lindsay's reply. He would never hurt me. Jack is too. Good. The gym fell into stunned silence. A few kids looked around. Teachers scrambled. The feed cut in 5 seconds later, but the damage was done. Whispers started. Ethan froze. At home, Jack got a call from the school counselor. He kept his tone calm. Apologized for the mix-up. Said Ethan had been working on a video project. But he knew what this meant. Later that day, Lindsay came home rattled. You will not believe what happened, she said, pacing in the kitchen. Somehow our names came up during a student presentation. Someone used an audio clip of me and Brent. I do not know how. Jack acted stunned. You think someone's spying on you? I do not know, she snapped. You think I am crazy? Jack held her shoulders. Hey, breathe. Maybe it is just a coincidence. Lindsay looked shaken, nervous. Jack smiled behind his eyes. The fear had finally begun. The school leak rattled Lindsay more than she let on. That night, Jack found her pacing the bedroom, phone in hand, thumb tapping out messages, deleting, retyping. She paused when he entered. You okay? Jack asked gently. Lindsay looked up, forcing a smile. Yeah, just a weird day. You want to talk about it? She hesitated. It is just scary. What if someone is spying on us? What if it is about Brent's business? Jack tilted his head. You think someone's watching Brent? She shook her head quickly. I do not know. Maybe. He is a public figure. Stuff like this happens. Jack stepped forward, touching her arm. Linz, is there something I should know? Her face twitched. For a second, just a flicker of doubt. Then she softened, leaned into him. No, I swear. Nothing you need to worry about. Jack kissed her forehead. Okay. He walked away, heart steady. Her lies were more polished now, her guilt a little more buried. But the crack had formed. Fear had entered her voice. She was starting to imagine shadows. Good. In the garage later, Ethan handed Jack a fresh batch of footage. This one was tight. Body language, voice fluctuations, timestamps on facial tics. She is spiraling, Ethan said. I can see it. Let her, Jack replied. She is going to dig her own grave. 3 days later, Jack received an anonymous message through an encrypted server Grant had set up. It came with a video file. Jack opened it slowly. On screen, Brent, laughing with a man in a dark suit, champagne in hand, at a political fundraiser. The caption on the video read, Brent Carrington and Congressman Holloway, off record, off the books. The same congressman who had pushed for veteran charity tax cuts. Jack's jaw tensed. We found the leak. He forwarded the clip to Dana. 2 hours later, Dana called. This is gold. If Brent's company funneled fake donations through Holloway's PAC, that is federal. I can get the feds interested. You want to go there? Jack did not even blink. Kick the door down. Meanwhile, Ethan tracked Brent's social media activity. Photos of charity events, photos with soldiers, with folded flags, with families who thought the man cared. All fake. Jack stared at the screen. He built his image off other people's sacrifice. And now? Ethan asked. Jack's voice dropped. We strip it bare. They prepared a press packet, clips, financial fraud summaries, screenshots of the congressman's phone calls with Lindsay flagged private line. Dana began contacting investigative journalists. The silence was ending. Ethan called in a favor. A classmate, Zoe, worked part-time as a junior contributor for a campus media group with syndication ties. Smart, bold, curious, the kind of person who knew how to sniff out a real story. Ethan invited her over under the guise of help with a film project. She came over on a Tuesday afternoon, dark curls and a messy bun, camera bag over one shoulder. "So what are we filming?" she asked. Ethan shut the door. "Not filming. Watching." He led her to the home office, where Jack sat behind the desk. Zoe's eyes darted between them. "What is this?" Jack leaned forward. "We want to give you a story. One nobody else has. But you cannot publish it yet. You can investigate. You can dig. But until we say go, it stays locked down." "Understood." Zoe's curiosity sharpened. "Who is the target?" Ethan clicked play. The screen lit up. Brent. Lindsay. The cabin. The donations. The transfers. A slow, horrifying collage of betrayal, lies, stolen valor, and corruption. Zoe sat still for a long time, then finally whispered, "This is insane. This is national." Jack nodded. "Exactly. Why me?" "Because Ethan trusts you. And you have reach. When we pull the trigger, we want people talking." Zoe swallowed hard. "I will write. I will build the timeline. But this is going to explode." Jack's eyes locked on hers. "That is the point." Brent's face was everywhere. Billboards. Newsletters. Sponsored Instagram ads. His campaign for city council was ramping up fast, veteran-focused, community-first, all-American branding. Jack sat in his truck outside a local event center as Brent greeted a line of supporters. Lindsay stood beside him, hair curled, wearing a flag pin, smiling like the betrayal did not live in her bones. Ethan sat beside Jack, holding a DSLR rig with a long lens. He zoomed in. "Fake as hell," he muttered. Jack's voice was flat. "He is peeking. That is good. Means we time the fall for maximum impact." Ethan adjusted focus. "You want to drop something today?" Jack shook his head. "Not yet. Let them win today. Let them feel untouchable." Inside, Brent gave a speech. Passionate. Patriotic. Rehearsed. Cameras rolled. Voters clapped. Every sentence dripped with manufactured humility. Jack recorded the audio from a mic planted earlier in the podium. Outside, Jack handed Ethan a thumb drive. "Run facial comparisons between Brent's campaign appearances and his cabin visits. Match timestamps. I want proof he was sleeping with Lindsay on the same nights he was giving war widow speeches." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "You want hypocrisy in HD?" "Exactly." Later that night, Jack emailed 2 images to Dana, Brent kissing a widow's hand at a fundraiser, then kissing Lindsay against a car door 3 hours later. Both dated. Both clear. Dana replied one word. Perfect. It was Saturday morning when Ethan's little sister, Ava, walked into the kitchen holding a pink notebook. "Daddy, what does secret weekend mean?" Jack paused, kneeling. "Where did you hear that, sweetie?" "It was in Mommy's room. I was coloring and found her notes." Ethan looked up from his laptop, face stiffening. Jack gently took the notebook and flipped through. It was Lindsay's handwriting. "Cabin weekend. Buy new lingerie. Do not forget Brent's favorite cologne. Tell Jack I'm going to yoga retreat." Jack kept his face calm. "Thank you, honey. That is grown-up stuff. You did the right thing." Ava nodded. "Mommy said yoga is peaceful." Ethan looked at Jack once Ava left the room. "She is lying to her own daughter now." Jack opened the note again, then scanned it into the project file. "This goes in the timeline. Not for the world. For Ava. One day, when she is old enough. So she knows who told the truth." Later that afternoon, Lindsay returned from a supposed grocery run. Jack handed her a bag of oranges and smiled. "Everything okay?" She nodded. Store was packed. Jack placed the notebook quietly back into the drawer where Ava found it. Let her keep lying. Let her keep thinking she had it all under control. Because soon, she would learn you do not lie to your husband, your son, or your child. That night, Lindsay's phone slipped from her coat pocket and landed face down on the kitchen floor. She cursed and picked it up, brushing it off. "Still works," she said with a nervous laugh. Jack smiled, noting the spiderweb crack on the corner of the screen. Later, once she went to bed, he synced it with the mirrored cloud Ethan had built weeks ago. But now, a new file appeared, one Lindsay had hidden under a disguised folder name, Old Photos. Inside, dozens of voice memos. Not just recent ones. Some dated back months. And they were damning. One in particular started with Brent's voice. He still does not know? Damn. He is more blind than I thought. Then Lindsay's voice. He is a soldier, not a spy. He would never look here. Jack sat back in his chair, the room dead silent except for the hum of Ethan's PC. She thinks I was never paying attention, he said quietly. Ethan played another one. Brent laughing. If this ever gets out, we burn it all. Wipe everything. Jack's jaw tightened. Then we release it first. Ethan uploaded the files to a private server, labeling them with categories: affair, fraud, parental neglect. Jack tapped the table slowly. We are almost there. Ethan looked up. How much longer do we let them run free? Jack's voice was like cold steel. Until they walk right into the fire. Then we close the door. Jack sat at the end of the dining table, flipping through Brent's fake business cards like they were pieces of a broken puzzle. Each card had a different title: Operations Director, Strategic Consultant, Veteran Outreach Liaison. None of those roles were listed on Brent's tax records. Grant had emailed a decrypted copy of Brent's off-book employment history, several consulting roles, including one connected to a defense contractor being investigated for illegal weapons sales overseas. Brent is not just a fraud, Jack muttered. He is laundering more than money. Ethan leaned in. You think Lindsay knows? Jack opened a text file, one Brent had sent to Lindsay 2 weeks earlier. Shred the red folder. Too many names in there. I will handle the private clients. She knows, Jack said. Maybe not everything, but enough to make her an accessory. They scanned the barcodes on Brent's cards. One linked to a hidden landing page that triggered a secure download. It opened a spreadsheet of names, donors, contracts, half of them redacted. But one line stood out: Client 11, Holloway. Deliverable complete. $40,000 cleared. The same congressman they had already tied to Brent. Jack clicked print and dropped the pages into a binder labeled Final Phase, Legal Destruction. They built a kingdom on dead men's names, he said. Ethan did not speak. He just watched the printer spit out the evidence, cold, damning, real. Print 2 more copies, Jack added. One for our lawyer, one for the public. By Thursday, the operation was fully armed. Grant confirmed that all encrypted backups were uploaded. A triple-mirrored digital vault was set to trigger a mass drop if either Jack or Ethan went dark for more than 24 hours. Zoe, the journalism student, had already started outlining the first wave of the expose. Jack gave her permission to build a timeline but not release anything yet. Dana filed the final pre-divorce petition, one that named not just Lindsay's infidelity, but her involvement in financial fraud, identity misuse, and aiding a federal target. The bomb was ready. All it needed was a signal. Jack stared at the master control screen in their home office. Multiple folders were armed with time drops, email triggers, cloud share links, social media blasts. You ready? He asked Ethan. Ethan pulled out a small black flash drive. One button. Red wire arms it. Green wire drops it. Jack nodded. Tonight we let them walk into their own trap. At exactly 6:30 p.m., Lindsay walked through the door wearing a sleek black dress and red lipstick. Got a donor dinner. I will be late. Jack smiled. Tell Brent I said hello. She froze. Just half a second, then forced a laugh. You are funny. She walked out. Ethan appeared from the hallway. She flinched, he said. Jack nodded. She is starting to feel it. Good. They waited an hour, then began tracking her GPS. She was heading for a penthouse suite downtown, one Brent used for a fundraiser hosting. Jack checked his watch. We wait till they are all in the room, he said. Then we flip the green wire. It should have been a quiet morning. Jack stood at the edge of a military cemetery, dressed in his full navy blues, a folded flag in his hand. The funeral was for Corporal Jeremy Dale, a man from Jack's last deployment, who had died after returning home. Suicide. Another soldier lost not in battle, but in silence. The family had asked Jack to speak. He stepped up to the podium, eyes scanning the small crowd. Lindsay was not there, but Brent was, standing in the back, in a black suit, no tie, looking somber, pretending. Jack spoke. We bury too many heroes with no justice. We forget that the war does not always end overseas. Sometimes it follows you home. Sometimes it comes dressed in a suit and speaks fluent fraud. Brent stiffened. Jack did not look at him directly, but every word was for him. And sometimes, the ones who shake your hand are the same ones who sell out your name when you are no longer around to protect it. Later, Jack walked to his car. Brent approached from behind. That was a hell of a eulogy, Brent said. Jack turned slowly. Calm. Controlled. Jeremy died thinking he still mattered. Brent smirked. Well, at least he got a proper send-off. Jack's fist clenched behind his back. You should leave. Now. Brent chuckled, but something in Jack's tone made him back off. That night, Jack added Jeremy's name to the file of victims Brent had exploited, his photo, his service record, his donation receipt with a forged signature. Ethan uploaded it to the private timeline and gave it a tag, the final straw. The next move? Expose everything. But not just yet. First, Jack would make sure they saw what it felt like to be surrounded by silence, seconds before the explosion. 3 days after Jeremy's funeral, Jack received a letter in the mail. No return address. Just a plain envelope with his name handwritten on the front, Commander Jack Morgan, read. He opened it at the kitchen table, alone. Inside was a single folded page. Neat. Printed. No signature. Jack, if you are reading this, then I am gone. I did not know how to carry what we saw, what we were made to do. But I kept one thing I knew you would need one day. Brent Carrington was not just bad paperwork. He was the one who rerouted the supply chain. The one who got Bravo unit stranded in Mosul. He is the reason Sergeant Miller bled out. The reason the evac came late. I could not live with that. But I hope you can do what I could not. Finish this. JD, Jack sat still. Heart pounding. The edges of the letter trembling in his grip. Brent was not just a fraud. He was responsible for the death of Jack's own men. He took a breath. Then stood, walked to the safe in the garage, and opened it. Inside was a sealed envelope labeled Final Protocol. He had never thought he would use it. Until now. Melissa, Brent's legal wife, was waiting inside her car when Jack arrived. She handed him a folder, printed bank statements, including one account hidden under a dummy foundation name, Safebridge Defense Relief. That is the one, she said. That is where he hides the offshore payments. Even the Cayman account routes through there. Jack flipped through the pages. This enough to tie into Holloway? She nodded. Easily. Good, Jack said. Then it is time. They sat in silence a moment. Then Melissa said, You know he has a panic room, right? Jack raised an eyebrow. Downtown condo. Top floor. Behind the wine wall. It is soundproof. Hidden cameras. He meets donors there. Sometimes more. Jack clenched his jaw. Has Lindsay been there? Melissa stared straight ahead. She was the first one. That night, Jack called Grant. I need access to a private server inside a sealed building. Think you can ghost their surveillance system? Grant did not even hesitate. I have done worse for less. Jack loaded the Safebridge folder into the master archive. Then he turned to Ethan. Tell Zoe. We go live in 48 hours. They met in a diner booth after closing hours. Jack, Ethan, and Melissa. The lights were dim. Phones turned off. A laptop sat open between them, with Zoe joining by secured video call. This is no longer about revenge, Jack said, eyes scanning each of them. It is about justice. For the soldiers, for the stolen families, and for every name they used to line their pockets. Melissa nodded. And we do not just want Brent to fall. We want the entire network, every hand that fed off this. Zoe spoke up. Once we hit publish, I can get 3 independent outlets to pick it up within the hour. But you need to be ready for blowback. Jack looked at Ethan. Then back to Zoe. We are ready. Zoe clicked a few buttons. Then we do not wait. Uploads start tonight. Nothing explosive. Just a few coincidental leaks. Set the internet on fire. Let them scramble. Melissa smiled. Cold. Focused. They will panic. And when they start trying to erase the trail, Jack said, they will walk straight into their own confession. Ethan reached across the table, placed a USB on the laptop. Phase 1, he said. Zoe hit enter. Somewhere, on Reddit, a new thread appeared titled, The The charity that was never real. Why a war widow called me at 3 a.m. The story was no longer just theirs. Now, it belonged to everyone watching. It started with a quiet post. No name. No drama. Just a single Reddit upload titled, "The Man Who Preached About Honor." While sleeping with a soldier's wife, the video was only 90 seconds. Brent's face. Lindsay's voice. A blurred photo of their kiss outside the cabin. Then a line of text, "He speaks for veterans." But here's how he betrayed them all. Ethan had edited it to perfection, raw, minimalist, lethal. Just enough to light the match. By morning, it had 40,000 views. By noon, it had been reposted on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. Brent Carrington's campaign page was flooded with comments. Is this real? Who's the woman? This guy speaks at VA events? This better not be photoshopped. It was not. Zoe posted anonymously on her news channel's blog, verifying the metadata and timestamps. Sources confirm audio matches Brent Carrington's voice. Charity connections under investigation. Jack watched the rise from the war room they had built in the garage. Let them doubt him first, he said. Let them smell smoke before they see fire. That evening, Brent's team issued a rushed statement. We categorically deny all accusations. Mr. Carrington remains committed to serving the community. Ethan laughed. They're doing exactly what we need them to do, panic publicly. Jack nodded. They are trying to plug a hole in a ship that is already sinking. The next morning, Lindsay sat at the kitchen counter scrolling through her phone. Her face was pale, her jaw clenched. Jack sipped his coffee. Calm. You see the news? He asked casually. She froze. What news? He handed her his phone, screen already open to the blog post. She read silently. The title hit hard. Whistleblower drops footage of cheating political candidate tied to fraud network. Lindsay's hand trembled slightly. This is fake, she said. It has to be. People make these things all the time. Jack watched her. You think that is what this is? She looked up, searching his face. I do not know. He leaned in, lowering his voice. If it is real, what do you think happens next? Lindsay stood up, nervous. Jack, this is stupid. It is probably just some troll. Maybe. She grabbed her keys. I have to go. He followed her to the door. You think Brent will be okay? She hesitated, then forced a smile. Brent is smart. He will figure it out. As she left, Jack whispered under his breath. No, he won't. Later that night, Ethan showed Jack the new analytics. We are viral. For local news stations picked it up. Reddit is exploding. And Brent's campaign fundraiser for next weekend just got pulled. Jack smiled. It is time to crack him wide open. Brent sat in his campaign office 2 days later, sweat under his collar, jaw tight. Emails from sponsors were flooding in. Withdrawals. Freezes. Reevaluations. The digital storm had grown into a tidal wave. His publicist quit. His assistant stopped returning calls. The campaign's press manager scheduled an emergency strategy meeting, then ghosted completely. And through it all, Jack did not say a word. He watched the press conference from home, Brent fumbling through a staged denial. I have always been committed to my work. These accusations are false. Fabricated. There is no evidence beyond edited clips cut to footage. Ethan had hacked the projector feed for the live stream. It only lasted 12 seconds, just long enough to flash one clip, Brent's voice whispering. He would never suspect you. He is too broken. Then static. Reporters started shouting questions. Cameras clicked like gunfire. Mr. Carrington, who was the woman in the video? Did you use nonprofit funds for personal travel? Is it true your legal wife has filed separation papers? Are you being investigated federally? Brent froze. The press team ended the conference mid-sentence. Ethan texted Jack one word. Cracked. Jack replied, now we let the rest fall. Jack stood at the window with his arms crossed, watching the rain slide down the glass like slow tears. Inside, Ethan pulled up the newest asset, footage Melissa had just sent over. Brent, sitting in his car, on the phone, angry. I do not care what it costs, make it disappear. The whole site. Wipe the server. But the server was a ghost server, set up by Grant. Every deletion Brent attempted only triggered a deeper backup, each one timestamped, mirrored, and silently shared. Jack turned to Ethan. Release the church footage. The fundraiser clip too. You want both? Yes. If they are going to spin lies, we bury them with truth. Ethan smiled. Weaponized truth. That hits harder. An hour later, the next wave hit online. A video titled Smile for the Cameras, Sinner, dropped on a whistleblower channel. It showed Brent and Lindsay laughing at a charity auction, followed immediately by them caught in a heated, intimate moment behind a building 30 minutes later. Same outfits. Same night. The video ended with a banner. This man stole valor. This woman helped him do it. Within 6 hours, the comments were relentless. Donations to the foundation were frozen. Brent's name was trending for all the wrong reasons. And Lindsay? She came home that night in tears. This is getting out of control, she said, voice shaking. You have to believe me. I never meant for any of this to. Jack stopped her with a stare. Save it, he said flatly. You chose him. Now you face it. Lindsay backed away, stunned. You knew? He nodded. I knew the first night I came home. She opened her mouth, but Jack was already walking away. The silence hit louder than any scream. Not everything went smoothly. At 2:14 a.m., Grant's encrypted system flagged an alert. Someone tried to breach the ghost server. Brent's people, probably desperate IT hires, were hunting for the leak source. Grant called Jack immediately. They got close. I traced the ping to a condo Wi-Fi downtown, but they triggered the firewall. I wiped the packet before they could steal anything. Did they see who owns it? Jack asked. No, but we are burned. They know they are being played. They just do not know who yet. Jack stayed quiet a moment, then said, move the servers. Triple lock them. And prep Ethan's upload to hardwire distribution. No kill switch. Grant replied, already ahead of you. By dawn, the system had been restructured. Multiple USBs were cloned, stored off-grid. One given to Zoe. One mailed to Dana. One locked in Melissa's safe. One sent to a journalist in D.C. with no return address. Jack was not taking chances now. Meanwhile, Ethan stayed on his laptop, red-eyed but focused. His room was littered with notes, drives, printed timelines. We are going to win this, he muttered. Jack placed a hand on his son's shoulder. We are not just going to win, he said. We are going to erase everything they built. 3 days later, Dana met Jack outside the courthouse with a folder in hand. This, she said, is your checkmate. Inside was a sworn affidavit from Lindsay's coworker, a woman named Kara, who had covered for her dozens of times. The document detailed everything: fake business trips, Brent's presence in company spaces after hours, falsified receipts marked veteran outreach, used for personal weekends. Dana continued, Kara was afraid of retaliation. But after seeing the story go viral, she flipped. She is willing to testify. And here's the big one. She saw Brent personally deliver Lindsay a manila envelope full of donor cash. Jack took the folder and flipped it open. Kara's signature was clean, confident. We file this Monday, Dana said. Fraud, perjury, conspiracy, all of it. The court will see her for what she is. Jack nodded. She's already starting to feel it. I want her to feel the rest before the gavel drops. Later that night, Lindsay sat on the porch, smoking, a habit she had quit years ago. Her hands shook. Her eyes were sunken. Jack watched her from inside. He did not speak. He did not gloat. He just waited. Because now, the law was coming. And it was coming with her name on the top of the page. Jack walked into Dana's office wearing his navy dress coat. Not for effect, but for finality. Dana stood up, smiling as she closed the heavy leather case in front of her. It is done, she said. We filed the updated divorce petition this morning. Your wife's attorney received the documents 30 minutes ago. Jack nodded. Does she know what is in them? Oh, she knows now. Fraud, conspiracy, commingling of stolen charity funds, marital misconduct. The court has seen the footage. And Brent? He is officially being investigated by the state. Dana pulled out another folder. Also, this is from my friend in media law. She reviewed the publication timeline. You and Ethan are protected. All footage was captured legally, and all distribution went through anonymous third parties. Jack leaned back. I want her to walk into that courtroom thinking she still has a way out. Dana grinned. She is going to walk in smiling and leave gasping. That night, Jack returned home to find Lindsay sitting at the dining table, wine glass in hand. She looked up as he entered. You filed, she said quietly. He nodded. Yes. Her voice cracked. You really think this is all my fault? Jack placed his keys down. No, Lindsay. I know it is. She stood, eyes glassy. After everything, after raising kids, surviving deployments, you want to end it like this? Jack's voice was steady. I am not ending anything. You did. I am just finally telling the truth. She flinched, like the words physically hit her. You were supposed to never know, she whispered. Jack stared into her, emotionless. And you were supposed to never be this person. The video appeared on TikTok first. A 47-second clip posted by a teenage boy named Caleb Carrington, Brent's son from his first marriage. The caption simply read, Let me tell you who my father really is. The boy was calm, but his voice trembled just enough to make the emotion land hard. You see him giving speeches, wearing flags, acting like a hero. But I have seen the receipts. I have seen the lies. He cheated on my mom, lied to my stepmom, lied to everyone. He is not a patriot. He is a parasite. And I hope the veterans he used find out the truth before he gets to speak again. The post hit 1 million views in a day. Brent tried to discredit it, claimed the boy was emotionally troubled and estranged. But the damage was done. Podcasts picked it up. So did the media. Veteran support groups that had once endorsed Brent started pulling their statements. His social media pages were locked down. His PR rep resigned. And Ethan? Ethan was the one who had found Caleb on a private Discord chat, had reached out, shared the truth, let the boy decide for himself. Ethan watched the numbers climb and turned to Jack. He is cracking. From the inside out. Jack nodded. Good. Now we make it collapse. The morning of the hearing, Jack woke early, showered, shaved, put on his uniform, then opened the box labeled 0 hour. Inside were 4 drives. 1 labeled court, 1 media, 1 failsafe, and 1 simply justice. Ethan met him by the front door. You sure you want to do this? He asked. Jack locked eyes with him. We do not stop mid-war. They entered the courthouse through the side entrance, quiet, unseen. Dana was already waiting inside. Across the courtroom, Lindsay sat with her lawyer, pale and tight-jawed. She tried to look composed, but her hand trembled as she lifted her glass of water. The judge entered. Proceeding for Morgan versus Morgan. Division of assets. Custody. Additional charges noted in filing. Dana stood. We are submitting video exhibits, witness statements, and financial documentation. These materials show clear evidence of fraudulent conduct and marital breach. Lindsay's lawyer objected. My client requests a delay to review the materials. Denied, the judge said. This has been in motion for weeks. Then the screen lit up. Jack had authorized a single 2-minute clip. Brent. Lindsay. Money transfers. The kiss at the cabin. The private fundraiser turned tryst. The audio of her saying, he is too soft. He would never fight back. Lindsay gasped. Whispers broke across the room. The judge blinked. We will recess for 10 minutes. But let me be clear, this is no longer a standard divorce case. Lindsay turned to Jack, panic rising in her voice. You cannot do this, not like this. Jack leaned in, steady. I already did. He walked out before the recess was over, leaving her to sit in the ruin of her own choices. The footage leaked during a live morning broadcast. Not planned, not expected, but perfectly timed. Brent had been invited on a local news channel to clarify the situation. He came in wearing a navy blazer, clean shave, trying to wear calm like a second skin. The host was polite, smiled. Mr. Carrington, do you deny the voice in those leaked clips is yours? Brent smirked. Of course I do. Audio can be altered. It is all being handled legally. That is when it happened. Behind him, on the studio's large background screen, Meant to show live feed of city traffic, Ethan's hacked signal took over. The full clip. No edits. No cuts. Just Brent in the cabin, pouring wine, whispering. The donor money? Who cares? They're dead. We made them martyrs. The studio went dead silent. Brent turned mid-sentence, eyes wide. What the hell is that? The host blinked, frozen. Brent ripped off his mic and stormed off set. But the damage was irreversible. Within minutes, the internet exploded. Hashtags, side-by-side edits, reaction videos, threads full of veteran families reposting the clip with their own heartbreak. Jack watched it all from his garage, the screen casting cold light across his face. Ethan leaned over his shoulder. This is it. He is finished. Jack's voice was quiet. No. Now he is exposed. Next, he gets buried. By the end of the day, Brent's campaign site was down. Jack opened the door calmly and stepped out onto the porch. Lindsay rolled down her window halfway. I just wanted to say, I am sorry. Jack stared at her. For which part? She looked down. For all of it. I never thought it would go this far. Jack stepped down one stair, his voice level but firm. You betrayed a man who bled for this country. You helped a criminal exploit the graves of soldiers. You turned our house into a lie. Lindsay swallowed hard. Do you hate me? Jack blinked slowly. No. I mourned you. The woman you used to be. She wiped her eyes. Is it really over? Jack shook his head once. No. Over would be mercy. What is coming is truth. And truth burns slower. He turned his back and walked inside. Lindsay stayed in the car long after the porch light went off. Monday morning. The courtroom was packed. Press. Attorneys. 2 U.S. Marshals posted near the doors. Jack sat in the front row with Dana. On the other side, Lindsay. Alone. Pale. Dressed in gray. The judge entered with a thick folder, one marked Morgan versus Morgan, fraud addendum. This court has reviewed all submitted evidence, the judge said, eyes scanning the room. Let me be clear. This is no longer a divorce. This is the aftermath of systemic deception, financial exploitation, and betrayal layered across personal and public trust. Dana stood. Your Honor, my client is not pursuing damages. He is pursuing justice. Full custody. Retention of all joint assets tied to his military pension. Immediate removal of Ms. Morgan from their shared residence. Lindsay's voice cracked as she stood. Your Honor, I did not understand the full extent of. The judge raised a hand. Silence. You chose your side long before this hearing. He banged the gavel once. Full ruling will be issued in 48 hours. But the court recognizes Mr. Morgan as the aggrieved party. Custody and property provisions will be enforced immediately. Lindsay collapsed into her chair. Jack did not look at her. He simply stood, buttoned his coat, and walked out with Ethan at his side. As the reporters shouted questions, Jack spoke just once. I never wanted revenge. I wanted peace. But some truths are earned through war. The house was quiet now. No secrets whispering through vents. No silent betrayal hiding behind hallway walls. Just silence and the hum of healing. Ethan walked through the living room, now half empty. Lindsay had moved out 2 days earlier. Her side of the closet was bare. The family photos she once staged on the hallway shelf? Gone. Jack stood in the kitchen, flipping pancakes. Not for any celebration, just for normal. Something they had earned. You ever think it would end like this? Ethan asked. Jack poured syrup without looking up. No, but I knew it had to end. They ate in silence for a moment. Ethan spoke again, more cautious this time. What if she tries to talk to Ava? Or come back for anything? Jack met his eyes. She lost that right when she weaponized this family. We protect Ava now. From all of it. Later that day, Jack walked the backyard where he used to play catch with Ethan when he was 9. He sat on the old bench under the oak tree. The same one that held a tire swing once. The same tree Lindsay stood under during a family photo years ago, smiling, hiding. He stared up through the branches and whispered, almost to no one. You lied inside my peace. And still, I did not break. I watched. I listened. And I ended you without firing a single shot. The email came from a national news channel, a respected outlet. They wanted Jack on camera for a special feature called Faces of Betrayal, when heroes are used. Dana advised caution. This puts your name at the center, but it also puts your story in history. Jack thought for a long time, then nodded. Let them hear it. The studio was minimal, dark wood walls, soft lighting. The journalist was a veteran herself. She spoke gently. What made you stay silent? Jack looked her dead in the eye. Because pain speaks fast. But truth? Truth speaks last. She asked about the betrayal, the surveillance, the fake nonprofits, the emotional damage. Jack answered every question, never flinching. Then she asked the one that landed hardest. If Brent Carrington were watching this right now, what would you say to him? Jack took a breath. I would say nothing, because the silence I gave him was louder than anything I could ever say. The segment aired that Sunday night. It went viral by Monday morning. But Jack did not read the comments, did not track the views. He went for a walk instead. Not to run from the past, but to finally walk into a future without it. Jack sat at his desk late that night, pen in hand. The house was still, Ava asleep upstairs. The moon lit the side of the desk as he began to write. My daughter, you are too young to understand now. But one day you will ask questions about why your mother is not around, why people whispered, why I never told you the full story. The truth is she was lost before we ever saw it. And I let her think she had one, because I wanted to protect you first. Your brother and I fought this war without guns. We fought it with patience, with proof, and with silence. One day, you will read everything, when you are strong enough to know that truth hurts. But it also heals. And when you do, I want you to be proud, not of what we endured, but of how we ended it. Love, Dad. He folded the letter and sealed it in an envelope marked, for Ava, when you were ready. Then he sat back. For the first time in months, he allowed himself to breathe. Brent sat in the back of a black SUV, hands shaking as he scrolled through his phone. Every app flooded with headlines. Carrington Foundation under federal audit, former candidate accused of donor fraud, veteran families demand arrests and fake charity scandal. Outside, reporters waited like wolves. He wiped sweat from his temple, tried to call Melissa. Straight to voicemail. He called Lindsay. This time she picked up, but her voice was cold. Hello. I cannot help you anymore. Lindsay, he said, desperate. They are coming after me. No, she cut in. You needed to think ahead. I did too. And I chose wrong. Click. The line went dead. Brent looked up at the driver. Take me to the airport. Private terminal. The driver nodded, but 20 minutes later, police cruisers boxed the SUV in on the expressway. Two detectives stepped out, badges out, expressions hard. Brent Carrington? One asked. Brent's mouth opened, but no sound came. You are under investigation for charity fraud, campaign finance violations, and military impersonation. He was not arrested, not yet. But he was escorted. His passport was seized. His bank accounts frozen. And for the first time in his life, Brent Carrington had no control. Lindsay moved into a short-term rental across town. It was small, barely furnished. Quiet. She sat on the edge of the bed night after night, staring at the wall. No calls from friends. No family visits. No Ava. She had tried. She had begged. But Jack had filed a legal restriction. Ava would only see her mother under supervised visitation. That hearing would come soon, but until then, she had nothing but silence. One afternoon, she opened her inbox. Over 100 emails. News alerts. Blog links. Messages from old coworkers. One simply read, You destroyed him, and yourself. Hope it was worth it. She slammed the laptop shut, paced the room, breath catching. She tried calling Jack. Voicemail. She tried Ethan. Blocked. Finally, she left a message. I never wanted this. I thought I was escaping something, but I was just breaking it. Please, just let me see her. Just once. Not for me. For her. Jack heard the voicemail, but he did not reply. He forwarded it to Dana. She filed it under emotional leverage, evidence of guilt, because it was too late for regrets now. The local VFW chapter invited Jack and Ethan to a private ceremony. Small, quiet, just veterans. No media, no politics. They stood outside by a new flagpole, donated in honor of Corporal Jeremy Dale, whose name Brent once used on falsified donation receipts. Jack was asked to speak. He stepped up, holding a folded flag. Voice calm, measured. You do not need to wear a uniform to speak about honor. But you better have lived it if you plan to stand beside those who died for it. He unfolded Jeremy's photo, placed it in a frame beneath the flag. This man mattered. He mattered when he served. He mattered when he came home broken. And he matters now. The crowd was silent. Jack continued. There are people who use patriotism like a costume, who speak about sacrifice and never pay a price. But not here. Not today. He stepped back. Ethan walked to the front next, placing a small engraved plaque beneath the photo. For every name that was used, for every story that was stolen, we remember, we protect, we speak. The flag rose slowly, waving in the clean morning wind. Brent was no longer trending. Lindsay had vanished from the headlines. But the names they used would now live above them all. It had been weeks since the court hearings, since the flags went up, since the world watched a man get taken down without a single punch thrown. Jack thought it was over, until the knock at the door. He opened it to find Melissa. Not broken, not bitter, just composed. She held a file folder. I figured you should have this, she said. It is the last piece. Inside was Brent's original charity application form, years old. A handwritten note attached to the back. If this fails, bury it. If it works, we own the narrative. Jack stared at the handwriting. Brent's. You kept it all this time? He asked. Melissa nodded. I kept everything. But I was scared to use it, until you made him afraid. She turned to leave, then paused. He used you, just like he used all of us. But you turned that into something I could not. You turned it into justice. Jack stood there a moment longer after she left, the file still in his hand. He did not feel pride. He felt weight. But this was not the weight of revenge. This was the weight of closure. Graduation day. Ethan stood on stage in front of his classmates, his cap slightly tilted, the summer sun hitting his shoulders. He had been chosen to give the closing remarks. Most people expected the usual cliches. He gave them something else. Some people think silence means weakness, that if you do not speak up right away, you have lost. But I have learned something this year. Silence is not weakness. It is patience. And when you speak after you have waited long enough, it hits harder than anything. The crowd was still. Ethan continued. I watched a man fall. A man who wore fake honor like a costume. But I also watched my father, quiet, patient, strong, stand tall without saying a word. And when it mattered, he did not shout. He showed the truth. And it was louder than any lie. The applause rose slowly, then like thunder. Jack stood in the back of the gym, heart full, throat tight. This was not about vengeance anymore. This was about legacy. Back at home, the sun was setting behind the trees, washing the yard in soft gold. Jack knelt in the dirt beside Ava, showing her how to plant a seed. Now, you push it down just a little, he said gently. Ava squinted. Like this. Perfect. Ethan stood nearby, sipping lemonade, watching his father for a moment, seeing a man no longer carrying a war, but planting peace. Jack looked at both of them. His kids. His truth. You know what I have learned? He said, brushing dirt from his hands. Ethan raised an eyebrow. What's that? That the best revenge is not what you do to them. He glanced at the flower bed. It is what you build after they are gone. Ava smiled, pushing the soil down with her fingers. Will it grow? She asked. Jack smiled back. Yes, because we are finally planting the right things. And for the first time in what felt like a lifetime. The house felt like home again. The letter came certified, stamped in red. Official. Federal subpoena. Appearance required. Brent Carrington. Jack stood at the kitchen island holding it in one hand, coffee in the other. Ethan glanced up from his laptop across the table. That from the feds? Jack nodded. Final call. Brent was being summoned for a full federal inquiry, charges stacked. fraud, misuse of veteran funds, unlawful charity distribution, identity falsification, conspiracy. Dana had called earlier. They are moving fast now. Public pressure, political shame. Brent's name is radioactive. Jack dropped the letter on the table like it was already history. Good. He deserves to answer for more than what he did to me. That afternoon, Jack drove to the courthouse. Not for himself, but for the sake of watching history correct itself. Melissa was already there. She wore a plain suit, hair tied back, eyes sharp with quiet fury. They sat together, silent as Brent entered through the rear corridor, flanked by two attorneys. He looked thinner, paler. His expensive suit could not hide the cracks. When he saw Jack, his step stuttered. Jack did not blink. The judge's voice rang out. Mr. Carrington, you are now under formal investigation. The court has reason to believe you profited illegally from military-related charitable organizations and manipulated personal relationships to protect your fraud. Brent opened his mouth, but no one listened. And that was the difference now. The world had stopped listening to his voice and finally started hearing the truth Jack carried. Late that night, Jack sat alone in the garage, his hands covered in soot and old oil. He had spent the evening fixing the lawnmower, not because it needed it, but because some habits from the Navy never left you. Tidy tools, quiet tasks, reflection in motion. In the corner was a metal box. Inside it, everything from the operation, old drives, receipts, flashcards, transcripts, even his deployment badge from the year Jeremy died. He stared at it for a while. Then he grabbed a match. Ethan walked in just as the flames began to lick the papers. You sure about this? He asked. Jack nodded. We already made our statement. The world knows. The court has the rest. But this, he looked into the fire. This was mine. This was for peace. And I do not need to carry it anymore. They stood in silence, watching betrayal turn to ash. Afterward, Jack pulled a weathered letter from his back pocket and handed it to Ethan. It is from Jeremy. Last letter before the operation in Mosul. I never opened it. I could not. Ethan unfolded it slowly, his voice quiet. Jack, if I do not come back, tell the others I went down fighting. Tell them I was proud. And if you made it home, make it count. That is what I want. Not revenge. Just honor. Just someone who remembers we mattered. Ethan swallowed hard, his voice breaking. He wanted healing. Jack's jaw tightened. Then we give him that. The stone bench faced a row of white crosses. Arlington National Cemetery was quiet that morning, just wind and birds. Jack sat there in full uniform, Ava beside him holding a small bouquet of blue lilies. Ethan stood behind them, a camera bag slung over his shoulder, but unused. This was not a day for footage. It was a day for memory. They were visiting Jeremy Dale's grave. Jack placed the flowers down, knelt, and rested his hand against the headstone. You did not get to come home, he whispered. But we made sure your name did. Ava leaned forward, looking at the grave marker. Was he your friend? Jack nodded. He was more than that. He was a good man in a bad place. And for a long time, bad people tried to make money off his name. Ava frowned. That is wrong. Jack looked at her and smiled. That is why we stopped them. They sat for a while, no rush. Jack pulled a folded piece of paper from his coat. He read aloud. To the ones who serve and never see peace. To the ones betrayed by those who never wore the uniform. We remember you. We protect your legacy. And we make sure your silence still speaks. A tear slipped down Ethan's cheek, but he did not wipe it away. Jack stood, helped Ava up, and looked around one last time. As they walked away, a man in a wheelchair rolled up to the same grave, an older veteran, a missing leg, and a steel stare. He saluted as they passed. Thank you, sir, he said to Jack. Jack paused. For what? The man gestured to the grave. For making sure they do not get forgotten. Jack nodded. That is the only war I plan to keep fighting. The court's final ruling came by mail. Not digital. Not some cold upload. A stamped envelope. Old-fashioned. Direct. Jack opened it alone in the backyard, sitting in the shade under the old oak tree, The same tree where his family once smiled for fake pictures. This time, the quiet was honest. The document confirmed it all. Full custody of Ava granted. Divorce finalized. No contest. Lindsay permanently removed from all military and pension-linked accounts. Her visitation rights suspended pending a future review. Jack closed the folder gently. He did not smile. He just exhaled. Inside, Ava was painting on the kitchen table. Ethan was editing a new project, something for himself this time. Not revenge, not exposure, just creativity. When Jack walked in, Ethan looked up. "It's done." Jack nodded. Ethan stood, crossed the room, and for the first time in months, they hugged. Not stiff, not guarded, just real. "You held it together," Ethan whispered. "Even when I couldn't." Jack replied softly, "That is what fathers are supposed to do." Later that night, they sat around the fire pit behind the house. Ava roasted marshmallows. Ethan played soft music from his phone. It was simple, but it was peace. And Jack, after all the war, the lies, the planning, realized something rare. This was enough. Lindsay wrote a letter. She never mailed it. She kept it folded in her purse, like a memory too dangerous to release. "Jack, I do not expect you to forgive me. I do not even ask it. I broke something pure, and I let pride and thrill destroy my foundation. You gave me silence, and in that silence, I heard everything. You never humiliated me. You let me humiliate myself. You let the truth speak louder than revenge. That is what haunts me most. If Ava ever asks who I was, tell her I was someone who made a terrible mistake. But also tell her that I once loved her father more than anything. I just forgot how to show it." She folded the letter, slipped it into the back of her wallet, walked to her balcony, and stared into the horizon, not with hope, but with awareness. She would spend the rest of her life rebuilding what could never be restored, but what could still be understood. Brent? He took a plea deal. Public apology. Heavy fines. Lifetime ban from political and nonprofit activity. He vanished from headlines. And Jack? Jack became the man Brent pretended to be. Quiet, respected, and finally free. It was the end of summer when Jack visited the school to drop off Ava's enrollment paperwork. The secretary greeted him with a kind smile. "You're Jack Morgan, right?" He nodded. "I saw the story," she said. "What you did, that was something." Jack adjusted his posture slightly. "I did what needed doing," he replied. But that night, as he sat with Ava watching her fall asleep with her teddy bear hugged tight, and Ethan working on his college essays in the next room, he let himself answer the question he had never been asked out loud. Why did you really do it? Not for revenge, not for headlines, not even for justice. He did it for clarity. Because when lies are exposed and silence breaks like thunder, clarity enters like light through a cracked wall. This story is about betrayal. But more than that, it is about how to respond when the world forgets your worth. And so here's the lesson. Revenge is not about hurting the ones who hurt you. It is about refusing to let them define your silence. It is about building something unbreakable from the pieces they tried to shatter. Anyone can explode. But strength? Real strength is in the quiet. The way you carry yourself when no one sees you. And when the time comes, when the world is watching, let them see the truth, not your rage. Now, one last question for you. If you were Jack, would you have stayed quiet too? Or would you have snapped? Let us know in the comments where you are watching from. Your voice matters here. This community is built on real emotions, real stories, and real people. And hey, if this story hit you hard, if it kept you reading, feeling, or thinking, give it a like, hit subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear the truth wins, even if it takes time. We will see you in the next thriller, the next epic revenge story. Until then, take care of your peace and protect your silence. Because sometimes, silence is the loudest justice of all. The end.